Hi, my name is Hamid, and this is my sister Zaina. Say hi.
Hi.
All right, and today my sister is vaccine hesitant, and I am going to help her. And I'm going to help her by answering some of her questions about vaccines to the best of my ability, and hope that I can, change her mind on vaccines. You should probably ask your first question.
Okay, so I think vaccines personally are very, very scary, and there's so many unknown chemicals in them that us people have absolutely no idea about. And I'm just wondering, what are the main ingredients in a vaccine?
Okay. All right. That's a very important question to ask, and I'm glad that you asked it. So ingredients to a vaccine, there's the adjuvants, there's the antigens, fluids, preservatives, and stabilizers. Um, Basically, the adjuvant examples are like aluminum and calcium. Its job, I know, like, aluminum and calcium in a vaccine going into your body, that's must sound scary, but it actually isn't as scary as it seems because it's in very small amounts, and not to mention your body has calcium. It basically enhances the vaccine's ability to create a stronger immune response once the vaccine's in. The antigen, um, I think it's a bit obvious. I think there's, obviously people are scared of that part too. Basically, that's like the virus or bacteria itself. That's what is needed to go into your body, a little bit of that. And it's obviously either killed or weakened. It's not like the actual thing, but it's weakened or killed. And that's how the body knows to fight that off for next time. And then there's fluids. Like the biggest common fluid that's used in vaccines is sterilized water. Basically, that helps with just transportation. If you want something injected in you, you don't want it to be a solid, you want it to be in liquid form. So water helps with that, and it has to be sterilized. And then preservatives and stabilizers, they have a huge purpose as well. They basically stop the vaccine from growing, or from like, basically not the vaccine, the bacteria from growing that's in it. Because, for example, with the polio vaccine, which is a very, very, very bad disease, polio years ago used to have a live attenuated vaccine, and that virus basically came back, and some people got polio because of the vaccine. So they went to the killed version or the inactivated version, but that's also very rare because of preservatives. They stop that from happening. But and the stabilizers, the preservative, basically they help it from to stop it from growing bad. Like you want these vaccines to
Mhm.
last for a period of time. You don't want the shelf life to be only for 1 week and then just throw them away. They need to last for a long time, so it could be worth the money that's being spent on them.
Okay, thank you. I had no idea what was in vaccines, and I appreciate you telling me about at least some of the things in a vaccine. But I do have a couple other questions. One being, I have heard a rumor about vaccines being a cause to autism, and I was wondering, is this true? Can a vaccine cause autism?
um no, no, it cannot. um so basically, with autism, the whole story about that, it happened back in, I want to say, 1998, and it was by that man in that picture. His name is
Mhm.
Dr. Wakefield, or was a doctor. He's no longer a doctor because of the mistakes that he made. He was a very popular doctor, very well known, respected at one point. And basically what happened was, he was doing research on like the situation, and he found out that basically autism, it just doesn't occur. It doesn't occur when it doesn't occur because of vaccines.
Mhm.
He did not find any information and no results that prove that a vaccine can cause autism. But Dr. Wakefield, he was very well known and he was very popular, and he had the ability or the resources to work on making an MMR vaccine, which is a very common vaccine: measles, mumps, and rubella. Everyone gets it
Mhm.
for the most part. All right. And he was working on his own. He was trying to make his own vaccine. And so he tried to, so in an interview or in a press conference, what he basically did was basically say, oh, this vaccine, the MMR vaccine that's currently out now, it can cause autism and this, and that, which was not true at all. But of course, that scared a lot of people.
Mhm.
And that story, that myth, it's basically a myth now. It's been proven wrong so many times. Um, Thimerosal used to be in vaccines, and it's basically it's one of the ingredients, and they were doing research, and people were saying, well, if you take out the thimerosal, maybe that will reduce autism. They did that maybe 20 years ago, I want to say, and come to find out, it actually, autism has gone up higher. So
Mhm.
the thimerosal had nothing to do with it had nothing to do with causing autism in a vaccine. So it was just a man, a very respected, so at one point respected man, that wanted to make more money, and he wanted his name out there with his own vaccine. So he made up a lie about another vaccine, and eventually he got his license taken away. But it's unfortunate. If only people actually knew this. Some people don't. Here's the article that he wrote. It was retracted. It was taken back because it was obviously false. There were so many flaws with it. This was his paper, and a lot of the people he worked with, the people that worked for him, a lot of them pulled their names away from the article because they knew that he was lying, and they didn't want their credibility to be destroyed because of him. So, luckily he's not practicing anymore, but the damage has been done, unfortunately, and it's our job to make sure that people know that this isn't actually like the case. Autism, vaccines do not cause autism.
Okay, thank you for clearing that up. And on the topic of this whole myth, I've heard many parents very scared to vaccinate their children just because of this. And on that topic, my best friend recently has become an older sister. Her parents had another baby, and she was just telling me about how scared her parents were of all the vaccines that this baby has to take. And I was wondering, can all these vaccines really be harmful towards an infant?
Um, no, it's not. It cannot be harmful. Oh, I have to go back. Sorry. Inventive vaccines. Yep. Here it is. So there's all right. So long story short about the infants and vaccines. That is not true at all, for the simple fact that when a baby comes out of the mother's womb, it is exposed. That baby is exposed to millions and millions and millions of pathogens from the start. And
Mhm.
babies aren't dropping dead everywhere. They're still alive, right? So
Mhm.
that's that. So the idea that a baby can't have multiple vaccines is ridiculous, because a vaccine has what, 12 to maybe a few hundred antigens in it. So it's not like it's got millions and millions. It doesn't have many, but it does enough to protect a baby, especially with hepatitis B. Hepatitis B is one of those that you need to vaccinate your baby immediately. And then there's the rotavirus and diphtheria. So I don't know why people think that. I mean, the babies are protected in a womb, and then they're literally brought into the real world where there's billions of pathogens. When you're eating, there's so much bacteria. There's so much bacteria that you don't even think about, and yet you're fine. So no, in infants, they're not in danger, and they've been documented for years now, for years, and the numbers are great.
Okay.
And here's to follow up on that. Here's the basically the card. Tells this is basically like the ballpark of when a kid should get what. So I obviously see here at birth, hepatitis B vaccine, the first dose, and then at around 1 month, 2 months, you get the second dose, and then between 6 months to 18 months, you get that third dose. Then you see the rotavirus very early on, between 2 to 6 months. Same thing with diphtheria, tetanus, and pertussis. There's HIB, pneumococcal infections, the polio virus, the flu vaccine that usually comes around 6 months and later, and then it goes all the way to 18 years old. So there's a lot of, it's very important to to vaccinate your kids, because if they're not vaccinated, the amount of things that they could be that they can get is horrible. If you look at the list of diseases, yeah, the flu, maybe you can get out of it unscathed, but polio, good luck. It's not a joke. Polio, tetanus, there's a lot that can really ruin your life. Rubella, hepatitis B, hepatitis A, all can kill infants. So it's very important to vaccinate your children, especially when they're young, and it doesn't matter if they have multiple vaccines.
Okay. Thank you for clearing that up. But I still do believe that natural immunity is just the better option. Like, I know that once I get a virus, I will receive the antibodies from it, and therefore I don't have to take the vaccine. So why should I believe that immunization from the vaccine is a better option just like natural immunization?
That's also a fair question. Um, to 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 basically for me to explain that best, yes, you can have natural immunity to a lot of things. You can catch it and get some certain immunity for a period of time. That's true. But in order to get that natural immunity, you have to actually get the disease. Do
Mhm.
you really want that? Do
Yeah.
you like, like for example here, measles. Some of the symptoms: dry cough, cold lick spots, fever, sore throat. People have died from measles. It's very dangerous.
Yeah.
It can kill a lot of people. So do you really want just natural immunity? You want to catch that? Oh, I'm immune, and risk possible consequences? It's very, very dangerous. I
Mhm.
read a statistic for measles, for example. People who are not vaccinated for measles, they have a 1 in 500 chance of dying. All right. But there's like a 1 in 1 million chance if you do take the vaccine.
Mhm.
So why not go for the vaccine? Like, why would you want to risk all those? And this is just measles. There's many worse. For example, like look at, we're obviously in a pandemic, COVID. If there are people out there that have had COVID and they still experience brain fog, and they probably will for a long time, and they may never recover, and it's going to affect them for the rest of their lives. Why? Because they didn't get the vaccine, and they tried going for natural immunity. Their bodies couldn't handle it. They were in the hospital for a long, long time. Yes, they made it out of alive, but now they have basically disabilities now, certain disabilities. They have certain issues, and they might have to go and live like that for the rest of their lives. So why risk it? It's not worth it.
Yeah. It's a fair point. And I do have one last question I'm very curious about.
Mhm.
Are- Is the virus in the vaccines like alive? Is it alive?
So some are, here are the types of vaccines. There's many more, but these are the ones I want to discuss. So there's the live attenuated, inactivated, subunit toxoid conjugate. So the live attenuated, it's that's the live one that you were talking about, but it's a very weakened, it's a much weaker version of the virus, much
Mhm.
weaker. All right. And measles, mumps, and rubella, that vaccine, it uses a live attenuated vaccine, and also the flu vaccine. But I do want to add something, and that is, you should not be scared if it's somewhat alive, because it's extremely weak. The only vaccine that I can think of that has affected someone negatively that was live attenuated at one point was the polio vaccine, as I said before. And it was like one person that caught it because it was live attenuated, and they switched to inactivated. And it was like one person, but because polio has been basically eradicated in the United States, having one person with polio is really, really, really bad, you know? So you look at inactivated, that the virus is completely destroyed. It's weakened. Okay. And then you got like a toxoid, which is basically an inactivated toxin. And it's not it basically it's like an inactivated, but it's for like toxin, like tetanus, you know.
Mhm. Yeah.
And um actually that should be switched. I apologize. Hep B should be in subunit, tetanus should be in toxoid. Okay, so tetanus is the one for for toxoid. And it just is basically it's an inactivated version of the toxin. And it just does the same. It helps the body do its basically fight off that virus whenever it comes up. And then
Mhm.
there's conjugate, which is basically a weak and strong antigen combining, and that's used for like PCV, pneumococcal vaccines. Um, yeah, it's most of them are not really alive, and if they are, it's weakened, and some of them that are alive, or not necessarily alive, they use parts of it, like the subunit. They use a protein or the sugar part of the pathogen, you know, to to inject into the body. They don't use the whole thing. And
Mhm.
yeah. Also, I wanted to add one more thing about tetanus. Let me just go back here for natural immunity. Um, Also, like some, I didn't think I said this, but for natural immunity, certain vaccines or certain viruses, you don't get natural immunity. You don't get natural immunity from tetanus. If you get tetanus and somehow survive, you still don't get natural immunity. So you could
Mhm.
still get it. So the vaccine is the only way you can be safe from dying from tetanus. So not every virus can give you natural immunity. That I also wanted to make that very clear as well. Any more questions?
No, thank you. You cleared a lot of things up, and I really do appreciate it.
Okay. All right. Would you say you're not vaccine hesitant anymore?
No, I think I'd consider now. I would consider getting a vaccine. I do. I'm very glad about the rumor clear up about causing autism. That is very refreshing to hear,
Mhm.
and I think I think it's a consideration.
Okay. That's that. I mean, that's at least something. You know, there's
Mhm.
a lot of people out there that just believe anything, and
Yeah.
I think all it takes is one person to go to them and just politely just tell them the facts. You know, and one person tells another, the other person tells another, and that's how we can right the wrongs of other people like Dr. Wakefield and some other people that have certain agendas.
Hmm.
So, yeah. Well, thank you for the meeting. And
Thank you for answering my questions.
yep. All right. Have a great day.
Have a great day.